Ooh. Welcome to Women Who Fights podcast. We empower female fighters to take full agency over their training. Our goal is to celebrate and inspire others with the incredible action women and allies are taking to level the playing field. We talk to experts, uncover prejudice, and champion what's driving our progress.
Today, our guest is Joe Crowley, who is a support coach of GB Judo Team, coach of the Olympian Nekoda Davis, fourth Dan black belt in judo, and a very happy white belt in BJJ. She also runs Ealing Judo Club. It's going to be her 18th year this year, and is a single mom of 4. Right. that's that's a lot of points there. So tell us, Joe, tell us about your journey. What is your judo background, and how did you come to start your own club? How come you're there 18 years? Tell us all about it.
My mum used to take us to every activity when we were little. She used to taxi us around to whatever we wanted to do. And one of my little brothers stuck with dance and drama, whereas I stuck with combat sports. And that's kind of just what we fancied doing. I was really fortunate. My first coach was an Olympic medalist in judo. He was Keith Remfrey at the Ealing Youth Judo Club in Sudbury Hill. And so I had this enormous gentle giant with a massive giggly laugh as my first coach, which was kind of inspiring. And then I moved on to later on a more competitive club within the time context, and ended up competing at national level, not beyond. And then I quit for a bit, concentrated on education, went through university, I travelled. And then I came back to judo after traveling and starting my teaching career, just because I thought there's something missing. I need to go back. Maybe I need to fight some people. But it was a really nice return. And on my return, I ended up helping to coach at a club in Kilburn called Mobley Judo Club, which is still a really wonderful club. And it was run by one of my friends who I'd grown up with. And then one day we had an enormous argument, absolutely huge argument at the beginning of 2003. And it was more personal than judo related, but we just had this huge bust up. And he was like, if you ran a club, you'd understand. And I was like, okay, I'll go do that then. and so within 10 days of that argument, I'd sourced mats and a venue and I ran my first class.
Challenge accepted.
Yeah, that's it. Challenge accepted. As an aside, we are now very good friends again, and we actually work together sometimes. But it meant, I suppose, we got 2 clubs for one, which is kind of cool. And I just stuck with it. I run that club, and we ended up going from 1 class a week to 9 classes a week. We have people working at all levels: adult, beginners, children, both genders. We have people working up towards world championships and Olympic games, and we also have children who stick with it for fun and recreation.
Wow, that's amazing. And that's 18 years now.
Almost
18 years. That's amazing. And so we were going to talk a bit about judo and how like it's incredibly explosive and requires a lot of strength, and obviously like men and women's strength will differ. How do you negotiate that? Do women and men train together? And how does that
definitely
get dealt
in
with?
my club. I think the values of judo mean that it should be mutually beneficial for everyone. And actually, we try to teach everybody who comes on the mat to work in a beneficial way with anybody with whom they're working. So if you're working with somebody tiny and little, I mean, the coach should, in theory, smash all the beginners that come in to learn from them, but you would never allow that to happen. And I suppose it's the same in our fighting classes. People come in of different weights and sizes, genders and experiences, and regardless of gender, those differences are what we want to enhance and exploit. So actually putting somebody better with somebody who's less experienced is a fantastic learning tool, possibly for both.
Wow. Yeah, absolutely.
What? Yeah, go on, Shanti.
No, you were beginning.
So given that, how fair is it? My question is because from what I've seen, we've experienced this once with Shanti too, For what I'm seeing, judo seems like you're standing and being thrown all the time. It's just constant. I'm throwing you, you're throwing me, right? Now, how
Yeah.
fair is it with men and women? Like the strength factor. How fair is it? Is
In training, it's not a competition, and although there is a competitive vibe, especially when you're training randori, which is like the sparring for BJJ,
mm,
um, if somebody who's bigger and stronger is becoming overly competitive with somebody who's smaller,
right.
I would want to retrain the big person into how to do their
Mm,
how to approach their class, because actually we should be making it accessible to everyone to a
Right.
point. But it's also my job to pair people up in the right way and make sure that I've got people working with those who will either accommodate or enhance what they're doing.
Mm,
So I think it's a big part of judo training is to have that discipline, and make sure that each of the judoka has that discipline. They learn it as they go,
mm,
right from day one in the beginners class. We look after everyone.
mm. Marina, you reminded me of when we did judo.
when we tried, there's a
Well,
difference. There's a difference.
I we went to a judo class ages ago. God, it feels like a distant memory now because of COVID. And Marina couldn't break fall, and I'm not amazing, but every time every time I was throwing Marina, I'd fall over, and I was like, why do I keep falling over? What's going on? And then so Marina went, I'm not letting go of you when I fall. I'm just pulling you down with me.
I was just so
And like
hesitant.
we had to get the massive crash mats out so that she wasn't worried about falling over. I
Please
mean,
come
like,
for a
Marina's
class,
like,
please.
Marina
Just
was
come
like,
as soon as we're over.
I was thinking, is this what the class is gonna be? Me falling for 45 minutes. And then I never went back again.
Oh, come and see me after
I
COVID. We'll arrange it.
Right.
I remember finding the cardio just so amazingly hard. It's
Yeah,
so different from jiu-jitsu.
it is.
It's extraordinary. You're like, wow, I thought I was fit.
Judo fit's a whole
Apparently
different
not.
ball game.
Oh my God, I know. It's crazy. Do you have a lot of women at your club?
I've probably had a higher percentage than many clubs, simply because the head coach is a woman. So it probably appeals to families with, I want to say, to do with religion. So I've had a number of girls from Islamic families over the years, whereas I don't think they'd necessarily always go to a class run by a man, and it means that I can have covered
Mm.
girls in the class as well if they want to come.
Mm.
They can come, they can stay covered, and with only women in there, it's not an issue. But I don't run a specifically women's only class. Um,
Mm.
yeah, I think we do have quite a high proportion, and our sort of medal tables of international athletes shows that I've probably got a 50-50 spread of men and women who've made it onto some form of international circuit. Um, and
Yeah.
that's probably quite unusual.
Yeah, that's amazing. And do you think that's like what the benefits are of starting judo? Because we know your kids do judo,
Everything.
some do
Everything.
everything, and are doing amazingly at it. What do you think is the benefit of starting judo as a child, or something like any martial art?
Any martial art, I think it inspires confidence. If my children they've traveled all over the world, and they've done most of that for judo. They can get on with any environment, they problem solve on the fly, they can cope with currency and with different food and language. They just take it in their stride, they can make friends anywhere. They can find their way to the loos in any building, in any language, in any country. They're just really confident around other people, and even from being babies in this country, they were passed around the judo club and around tournaments, around officials, from the day they were born. So they've just grown up confidently with an enormous extended family. Um,
Wow.
they've grown up with role models who go to world championships, and so they believe everything's possible. So I think combat sport has given them confidence, tolerance, broad horizons, an enormous set of possible goals that they could achieve. They also have well, maybe not all of them, but they also have discipline. They like to train. They're happy being in a healthy environment. They understand nutrition. They understand their weight. They understand why you need to train in different ways for different things. They're all flying in PE at school, for example. Their teachers and geography. The teachers are asking, well, what are proteins and why do we need them in PE? And my children are like, yeah, me, I know that one.
No, that is massive. It's down to you. So congrats for that, and that's amazing to be able to, grow up with these values and the discipline that comes with a sport. It's just amazing, and it keeps so much trouble away. How does being a mom
It does.
sorry influence your coaching?
No, go.
Because it's
Yeah, that's a really tricky one, because I think I am motherly towards new children who come to judo. So I look after them. I try and pinpoint very quickly what it is that makes them nervous and then combat that straight away. Some of that probably comes from being a mum, maybe from being a teacher. But I think, I don't know whether it's being a woman, being a mum, or maybe just being me, but I think I've always approached my coaching with quite a healthy mix of a sense of humour and a feeling of guilt trip all of my students into making sure that they get their training done, because otherwise I'll make them feel bad. That's definitely happened. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. It's true. It's true. And some of it's deliberate, just so you know. But
that does sound like a mum.
Yeah.
Oh my. But has that led to any issues? I mean, have you managed to stay close to all of your students that you work with? Does it impact?
Yeah, I don't know what the reason is behind it, but I've stayed in contact with a huge number of my students. One of my girls had a baby at the end of last year, and I've known her since she was 5, and I coached her in judo since she was 7, and now she's 24 and just had her first baby, and that's amazing. It's actually unbelievable, and I'm still in her life. And of course, Nekoda, who you've already spoken to, she's been with me since she was 11, and we talk every day, and we don't just talk about judo. We talk about life, we talk about education, we talk about their new dog, we talk about lockdown. And yeah, I remember one of my students, a really, really cool girl, Soraya. She's the same age as the one that's just had the baby. In fact, they were in the same class at school, and I was also their primary school teacher for a year. But Soraya and she phoned me up one day out of the blue and just said, I really want to do my CBT and get on a motorbike. Do you want to do it with me? And I was like, okay. So we went and did our CBT together, and it's nice relationships, really nice relationships.
Oh, that's amazing. Marina, do you have that relationship with your students?
Not yet. But I do understand the feeling of seeing a student grow up, and then you're like, God, I
think it's coaching works differently for different people, and it's just my way. I prefer to know the whole student. If somebody just walks in the door and they're kind of blank, if they're blank, I don't know how to coach them. I know what to coach, but I don't know how to coach. And I think coaching is really about interpreting the person that comes in and then finding avenues for them that work the best for them. The coaching isn't actually about me. So
I wanna. Can I ask you something on that? Which we had a conversation with Shanti before. We were saying that. I don't know how you feel about it, because you have been a student, you are a student, and you are a coach as well, so you can see both ends of the spectrum. So we were saying with Shanti that when you're in martial arts and you're a a student and you have an instructor, you expect this instructor to be the god, to be doing everything correctly, and to be that like the role model of life and of like everything. So when something goes wrong and your coach does something which is not, which you don't agree with, you're overly overwhelmed because you've built this big and amazing picture about the coach. What do you think? Is the coach that god figure? What do you think?
Yes, to a point. To a point, but I've always tried to coach with realism, so I don't want them to build me up so far that you can only fall. And I don't want it to be unrealistic. I think I'm mostly a human being, so I, so if I'm coaching something that I'm not very good at, I will always tell my class. I don't try and say, well, I know everything and I'm going to teach you a little tiny slice of it today. Isn't that generous of me? I'd rather say to them, look, we're going to do this technique today. I'm not that good at it, but I know the steps to make it good. I'll find you some videos, I'll send them to you, and I might be able to find you a coach to do some extra work on that with you. But I'm not a specialist. Let's do the basics and see how we go. And then I'll perform a demonstration maybe that isn't that great, or I'll find another student who's better at it than I am, and get them to show. So I try and keep everything very real. I've made many decisions in either life or in sport that haven't been perfect, but I don't expect to hide those from my students. I'd rather solve them with my students and have them see that there's always a way through it, even if you're making mistakes.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's really that's a testament to your teaching capability that you're honest about it, because then you can teach authentically, you can teach honestly,
Yeah.
and then you're putting your students first. You said something before, not in this conversation, but before, about how education is a skill, and I like educating is a skill, and I think that's incredibly
Yeah.
poignant, because just because you know something doesn't mean you can teach it.
100%.
And I know that my mum's a teacher, and watching her over the last 15 years grow into the teacher that she is now, it's amazing how, like, because she, and it's, I think you said this before, like, how to
Yeah.
teach something, just you don't, may not know it inside out, but you understand
Yeah.
how to teach it. And I think that's incredibly powerful, because you were an educator, because you were a primary school teacher
Yeah.
before, weren't you?
Yeah. I honestly, I think teaching is a massive set of skills. It's not even one skill. And if we consider that it's about communication, it's about empathy, it's about understanding the actual program and the content you have to deliver, it's about understanding the goals of each student while you're delivering it to them, and any end goals or interim goals they may have. It's about being able to even simple things like how to enunciate. How are you going to speak to your audience, whoever they are, in a way that they can understand it? Especially, I'm coaching in London. I have, at any one time, I can have 10, 15 languages in the room, and I have to teach them in English and still be understood by somebody whose primary language is Portuguese. Or it's I think it's a massive skill, and I think it's really underrated. It's not that people don't know you have to learn to teach, it's that they just forget. You perform well and then you become a coach later on in your career. Well, how can you just become a coach? You learned judo for 10 years, 15 years, however long, and then you're just expected to deliver a program in it to a variety of students. That's crazy. And if it takes you 10 years to perfect one technique, why would it not take you 10 years to become a reasonable coach? I think you have to put in the groundwork, the legwork, and do some learning, specifically some watching of other people, ask questions, ask your coaches to feedback, your students to feedback once in a while on how did you find the coaching in that session? I felt a bit flat. Just ask them.
Yeah.
They will tell you if you encourage that in your environment.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the idea that I know that my dad told me that in his old club, or before, as like blue belts or purple belts, you'd be picked to come and teach a technique or something. So you'd start the process of learning to teach, and you'd start being able to think things through in a different way. And I remember someone asked me once to show a technique, and I just froze. I was like, I have no idea how I do it. And just knowing actually like that there's a whole nother side of the coin when it comes to presenting to a group of people and making them understand, and not being like just blank.
I think it also you learn the techniques better when you're teaching them. You pull them apart in such fine detail to be able to give the information that it actually enhances your own knowledge of the technique that you're teaching, or the strategy that you're offering. And I get the children at my club to teach from very, very early on, and I just do it in simple ways, like ask one of my brand new red belts who's only been doing judo for 6 months, and just say to them, look, there's another student just walking in the door. Can you be their buddy today and just show them some break falls? And just do it one-to-one. And then later on, ask one of the yellow belts and say, can you just do the stretch for me at the end of the class? Just show them how to stretch out when you finish. So they only have to do a couple of minutes, and it's something they've always done. And by the time they get to their black belts, everybody has delivered something. And it's just part of the process. My son, my oldest, has been teaching with me since he was 9, and he loves teaching. He loves it.
Amazing.
Absolutely loves it.
I think just going back as well to talking about what the benefits are of something like judo or jiu-jitsu is that a confidence it brings you, and that's such a feather in your hat, just having that confidence to be able to stand in front of a group of people at the age of 9 and teach something that is really profound. And do you, just talking about teaching strategies, do you ever teach, wrong way to put it, how do you help your competitors prepare for a competition? Do you teach them how to work through that as well? Can you teach that?
Yeah, I think you can offer strategies, and you can be with them, and certainly offer support. So I had one student who, it took me a couple of years to work it out, but they performed much more comfortably if they'd gone out to the mat laughing. And so we would stand in the tunnel waiting to come out, and she would be really nervous. She used to get the clammy hands. She would shake. She would really find it tough. And before a competition, she would always be like, why have I signed up again? I'd already feeling the nerves. And we would stand in the tunnel before walking out to the mat, just observational humor, laughing at things around the venue. And I would say all sorts of inane, stupid things just to get her relaxed before she'd go out. But there are others where I would very specifically give them pointers on, don't forget, you want your right hand high on the lapel, you want to be stepping forward always on the left first, you want to circle to the right, do this, do that. And we would just remember the strategy we were going to put in play for that opponent at that time. So it's technical, some it's about manner and mood.
So you're studying the opponent, is that right?
Always.
So am I right to say that when one of your students competes, then you need to be there? Do you need to be there?
It's kind of a rule at our club that we try to make sure there's always a coach with every student at every competition.
Right.
I think it's massive in terms of the feedback that you can get after your performance, and also about how you become confident. You know, if your coach is standing right behind you, sometimes they don't even need to say anything. They can just nod at you, give you a little wink when you're walking out to fight. So yeah, you know what you're doing, off you go. But also it shows value, doesn't it? You do all that training with them, and then you send them to a competition. Just go and do that really hard bit on your own. No, why? I want to support them, even if it's just standing clapping. I want to support them and show that I value where they've come from and the work they're putting in.
And it's huge to know that this your coach is there. It's a massive helper. Can we talk about one of the biggest achievements that you have, your student Nekoda Davis? So you've been with her since she was 11. Did you recognize that she would become a champion, or that she was a very promising athlete? Are there any
from
aspects?
The first lesson?
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
From the first lesson, there have only ever been a few students like that, and she was definitely one of them. But I think we have to take it as it really is. It's not recognizing who will become a champion; it's who's recognizing the possibility to become a champion. So the decision really is up to them, not up to me. And but she was she was really quiet, almost never spoke when she first came. And she'd come from a school club with a yellow belt. And so she had some basic knowledge, and she came to the club and was just quiet, withdrawn, shy. But every time a coach spoke, she was glued, like, tell me more, like sucking up the information. And she did that from the very first session, and every piece of feedback you gave her, she would absorb, and you'd see her trying to employ it straight away. She was so coachable, really, really coachable.
Wow. And what about the days that
Wow.
she wasn't on 100%? Did she have an attitude, like a different way of, I don't know how to phrase this, but when someone's not feeling it, they say that champions work through everything, and when they're
Yeah.
tired, they still keep going, and the grind is there. Is that what it is? Is that what
Yeah,
makes a
she's
champion?
always paid attention to the grind, for sure. Hard work, small steps, and integrity is the way I've always said it to her. So be honest about your training, continue to work hard, and don't expect anything more than a tiny step forward at any point. If you can live by that in your training, I think the knockbacks are easier to take. You just know it's another step. It's okay, just keep working hard. It's just another step. Stay honest with yourself. It's just a mistake. It's just a small setback. Don't worry about it. Continue. And we've all seen, I use the hashtag all the time, consistency is key. Of course it is. If you want to be good at something, you have to train it. If you want to have that, my one at the moment is I'm trying to get massive calf muscles. And so I'm on calf raises. Why? Because they look amazing in heels. so I'm trying really hard. So every day I stand on my bottom step of the stairs, and at least a couple of times a day I'll bang out a set of 50 calf raises before I go up, or when I come down again. Just why not? If I want calf muscles, surely I have to work at getting calf muscles.
Yeah, it's true. I've never tried to get big calf muscles. It's never actually crossed my mind before. I was like, what could
Looking
they be
good
used
in
for?
heels.
Looking good in heels. Now I know. I remember before, like, really wanting, like, when I was younger, wanting a bigger bum, because
Okay.
that's something that you sometimes want. And I remember, like, my cousin, like, sent me like the exercises to do, and I was like, this is years ago, this is before I knew how to squat, and I was like, what are they doing? I'm not doing that. I'm just not. And the idea of having to do it regularly just shot the idea out the park. I was like, nah, not worth it, not doing it.
I understand. I was born with
Absolutely
rather
not.
a large one of those, but it's shrunk recently, so I think I'm happy with it smaller.
Oh. Oh dear. So I'd love to talk a bit about injury, because we know that you had an ACL, ruptured ACL in 2016. Is that right? Yeah.
Massive.
So can you tell us a little bit about that experience, and how do you also help your students when they're injured, like all the mental side of it? Because that's so, when you get injured as someone who, even just like an amateur who's like obsessed with the sport, not necessarily even an athlete, the depression and the lows and the self-doubt are so powerful.
Yeah, I always thought I understood, and then when I ruptured my ACL, I got a different understanding. I think maybe differently, but it was actually soul destroying for me, because I'd only been doing BJJ just for a few months, and it took me a massive amount of courage to start something new. So I was 39 when I started BJJ, already a mum, and already with a profile in judo as well. So there were all those things kind of trying to stop me from going, and I'd always wanted to. And I went along and did a few private sessions, which I was invited to by a parent from the judo club who was involved in both. And it was huge in terms of effort. And then I was training regularly, and sometimes I was training 5 times a week, and I was starting to see differences in my body, and I was feeling great, and it was helping my confidence, because I just don't have particularly good confidence. I don't have natural self-esteem. And I was working really hard, and then ruptured my ACL. And I knew the second I'd done it as well, I was like, that's my knee, it's done. I know it's done. And I just felt all of that confidence and the team spirit and the shared experiences just kind of slip away. And then I was, in a way, I was lucky. The guy I was working with when I injured my knee is also a PT. He helped me somewhat with the rehab afterwards. He was actually really sweet about it and helped for a while, but eventually that tapered off as it should. And I just remember feeling completely lost, like I couldn't find the energy to start again, having used up so much effort to get started in the first place. And it was really, really hard. And it's only since the first lockdown last year that I've actually really gone back to training since then, and only BJJ again since August. So from the end of 2016 to August last year, I didn't do anything at all. Not even an extra walk here and there. I was really doing almost nothing. I did the occasional kettlebells class, but almost nothing. And then the lockdown happened, and it was kind of a whole heap of free time. And what are you going to do with it? Well, I have to do something and be positive. And if I'm not obsessing over something, then I'm not really me. So I went and got fit, very fit. So training all the time. And my knee now, I've been cycling like a crazy person. My knee now is feeling stronger probably than it ever has. But that whole process of coming back to training and the nerves and the worry about injuring it again was huge. So I suppose having done that, maybe I'm a bit more conscious of injuries with my players, just how I approach it, make sure I stay in contact with them. So I drop them messages, even if they're not at the club for their rehab. I'll drop them messages a lot more often, just check that they're staying on top of their exercises, make sure that they know that they have to be eating well, stay hydrated, guys, make sure that you're sleeping well before you do your rehab. We want to make sure that everything's in place, get you back as quickly as is possible. Just try and keep them positive. Sometimes ask them if they want to come and do some assistant coaching as well. Keep them involved with the club, get some qualifications, go on a first aid course, do whatever they can, pass their theory exam for the next grade, do whatever they can just to stay involved.
That's the mum coming out of you. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. Well, yeah.
It is so important to stay. I think that's one of the worst things when there's something like judo and jiu-jitsu. The community is such a huge part of your support network that comes with it, and I think a lot of the sadness comes not just from the lack of endorphins that normally you're so used to, but also just you suddenly just feel like, wait, hang on, where's my net? Where's my security?
I'm really surprised that because I've only experienced this once. No, first time. I mean, first time I experienced this was in the gym. There was a guy that was injured, and he came and sat there and watched the class, and I was like, "Did you just come to watch?" And he said, "Yeah," and I thought, "Wow, this is exactly the sense of belonging that we're talking about. They want the people that are in these martial arts. They want this community feeling. And that's what is annoying now with COVID. Another question that I have for you. We know that. No, we don't. You're gonna tell us what's the difference between the male and female coaches.
That's really tricky for me to answer because I think it's on the whole just a difference between coaches.
Right. All right. What do you mean? Tell us.
Each human is different. Each coach will approach things differently, regardless of gender. They'll approach it with their own skill sets, with their technical knowledge and experience. And I think gender can have a part to play, but more in terms of I'm going to get shot for this, but I think it's more in terms of how other people treat you sometimes within a more organized network of coaches, rather than how your own students treat you or how you see yourself. I'm just a coach. That's what I do. I don't know how it feels to be a different coach or how it feels to be a male coach because I'm not one. So we're all different. But I think that the biggest limiting factor is being in combat sports and there being an expectation that the people at the top will be male.
Okay. And is that something that you feel like you've experienced?
Yeah, I think so. I think
yeah.
so, but maybe not in that extreme a way. It's happening. It's happening slowly. You know, there's been millions of men involved in contact sport for however many decades. Of course, we're going to have men at the top, and now that women are getting more and more involved, we will gradually see more women at the top. It's a matter of numbers.
That makes a lot of sense, because it's so important to have role models that look like you and like you feel like have had similar life experiences, and it's the same for race and religion, gender, all of it. You need role models that you can feel like a sense of shared experience.
Have you ever
Yep.
experienced do all your students show you the required respect?
Well, they kind of have to. Oh, they're going to get a lot of burpees. No, it's different now, especially. I'm head coach of a club that has a name. We're well known. I'm well known. So if people are coming to my judo club, generally they're choosing to have me as their coach. And if you're choosing that, then you know you're already open to having a female coach. I've had a couple of issues with parents bringing their children in the past who have treated me a little differently because I'm female and obviously didn't know that it was a female coach. I've even had them ask to speak to the real head coach when they come in the door, and I'm kind of like, well, here I am. They said, no, the guy who runs it, his name's Joe. This is Joe. Okay. Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah. Oh my God,
No,
that
it amuses
conversation
me.
does
It
not sound
amuses
fun.
me. Like, here I am, guys. I learned more about them than they did about me. Trust me.
Yeah. Says a lot about them. So thinking about your female students in the way of their menstrual cycle, does it ever come into play? Because me and Marina have a lot of we're still trying to figure out. We get very affected by our cycle in terms of like it draining energy, and it sort of you sort of turn up and you feel like you feel like a potato. You're like, I can't move my body properly. I literally feel like I'm wading through water, and
A bad
often
idea.
training is
A
just
very
an
bad idea.
absolute sham. It's an awful idea, and like you end up crawling off the mat crying because you're just like, my body's not working. We know not everyone has that experience. Some people are very like consistent, but with your female students, is that something that you have to sort of help them through? How does that get dealt
I
with?
encourage them and their parents to involve me if they feel it's necessary, and lots do. But it's more practical things. So they'll ask, "What should I wear clothing wise if it's that time of the cycle?" And I can give them practical advice on that. There's issues around making weight. It can change your weight, especially for those. If it's a younger child, if it's a young teenager, it's not going to matter very much. So I try not to approach it. It's not an issue. But for those of them that are looking at ranking lists or selection events and so on, it's a little bit more serious. So you do have to approach making weight slightly differently. But I think overall, I've tended to lean towards just working through it. We all have days where we have either our cycles are off or we've got a headache or work's been stressful. There's a whole range of things that can stop you being able to train at maximum capacity. So I think it's one of those issues that you need to learn to manage. And actually, I think most girls learn to manage it very, very well because it's one of their most regular barriers.
So you're a believer that
Okay.
regardless of your time in the cycle, training is a good idea.
I think training is on the whole a good idea. You need to maintain your fitness. You also need to feel accomplished. I think mentally it's really important to know that you gave it everything, but that's not the same as being on the wrong day of your cycle and coming into training and going 100% and trying to smash everyone when actually you feel rotten. That's not the same thing. But they can still they can go for a jog and get themselves a massage, make sure they eat really well, maybe come in and just do some technical drills if they're feeling up to it. Do whatever is right for you, but don't stop training. Just train differently and make sure you make the most of that day, regardless of how you feel. Just make the most of it in your given circumstances.
Yeah.
I probably haven't always said that. I probably haven't always said that. That's probably one of the things you have to learn and get to grips with. Yeah, I've had some students who've had some awful cramps at different times of the month, and I've tended to just, take a painkiller. I'll see you in 10 minutes. But actually, that doesn't always work. That's not going to always work. So no, I think I'm probably very different about that now.
Yeah, I think it's, well, your experience, you've been coaching for so long. I guess you've seen a whole like how people respond as well, like to different advice maybe, and everyone's different. Some people just need to be told, get on with it, shut up. And then other people that doesn't work.
Some people you can get to train. I mean,
basically
some will be reluctant and just need an extra push, and I think it's okay to have a range of students, some of whom who really need coaxing and guiding gently onto the mats, and then they'll work really hard and become great champions, but they really need that all the way through their career. There's others who you give them a written session, you say go do, and off they go, and they become a champion by themselves, just with a tiny little bit of extra information now and again, or a bit of mat side coaching. But for everyone, it's different. And I think that whole spectrum of needs is absolutely acceptable.
Yeah, absolutely. You
can enhance it, you can make it better, you can improve on your starting point. Everybody can. But some people need coaching differently. Some need a soft approach, some need to be bullied into it, and they'll admit that themselves. It's just different for different people.
Definitely. And for women's exposure in competitions, is that equal?
I think now on the World Judo Tour with the International Judo Federation, I have to say yes. There is a Gender and Equity Commission that has been up and running for a couple of years, and they work really hard at making sure internationally there is equal representation. The Olympic Games is exactly equal numbers, and there's now a mixed team event, which is men and women fighting together. Obviously, the men fight the men and the women, but you face up against a mixed team. The number of categories there are is the same for men and women. The prize money at the top end is the same for men and women. The amount of fight time you get per contest is the same. So in terms of elite sport, I think judo is really leading the way.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm really surprised, not because I didn't expect it, but because that is unusual. Like in terms of, I know for boxing only came in 2012, and women still don't have as many categories as the guys.
As numbers come in at the bottom, they will. But at the moment, eventually. There isn't a need for it. So we have to. If you just make actually what you do is weaken the cause. If you have the same number of categories for women as you do for men, but there's only 10% of the number of women actually entering it, you make the women's categories look weak. You make them look like they're not popular. So why would we do that? Actually, we want it to be popular and then have no option but to expand the number of categories in order to accommodate the bursting number of women who want to participate.
This needs to be implemented.
Yeah. I mean, it's a bit like MMA. MMA has exploded. I mean, and the weight cap. I mean, we interviewed someone a while ago, and the problem for her was that she had to cut so much weight to even be in the highest weight category, because she's like 6 foot. And so then she had to cut so much that she had photos of her like at weigh-in, and you're like, wow, you need to put some weight on. Like she was at the lowest that she could possibly physically be. which is the only thing, like one of the main problems I've heard with sort of the less weight
I
classes
agree.
is that
I agree. But are there enough
if you're
people
higher, you're in trouble.
to make that
Yeah.
a worthwhile permanent change? So if it's just for one fight for one person, I don't know that you can justify it unless you call it a super fight and then put it on as a one-off event, which I think is a great thing to do and a really good way of enhancing exposure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also kind of starting to introduce a category and sort of like, and then other people who
Yeah,
might be
I
in a
like
position
seeing, for example, at the last Polaris, I like that they called a super fight and had a women's match in the middle of it, and Fionn fought. It was fantastic, but they called it a super fight.
yeah.
Well, that's what it is. It's a one-off match against two great athletes, and they happen to be women. But they called it a super fight, and I think that's the right way to go about promoting it, to increase the numbers before we then have to expand the categories.
Can't wait to see Polaris doing a squats for women as well now.
It will happen.
Women's
Waiting.
It better happen. Yeah, we are waiting for that one. And we got slaughtered at the last one. I mean, I say we. England got slaughtered by Europe.
Clapping though. I was clapping though because sometimes we work with Dinu Bukalet, who put on that amazing Ezekiel choke. So he comes to my judo club and does judo with us, but he also helps me and my son sometimes with our BJJ technique. So we were just clapping. We were like, we really want England to win. Go Dinu! Europe.
Their European side was like, I mean, the England side was as well, but the European side was stacked with like it was just like, oh my god, every single one of them is like an absolute world champion. We need a women's one now.
It'll happen.
That would be awesome. So judo is a very old sport. I mean, is that partly why you think it's already at a really equal level in the Olympics? Is because it's been around for so long, and also women's participation's been consistent over the last.
That's part of it. I mean, women not for 100 years yet, but I think that's part of the reason. But also that it's a sport that is steeped in values. It comes with philosophy, and that is or should be taught to some degree right the way through your judo career. The day you walk into a dojo, you should be taught how to bow and what that means, why you're doing it, and so I think that makes it it's compulsory for judo to be open and inclusive. If it's not inclusive, it wouldn't be fulfilling its own objective. Yeah.
Right. That makes sense. What is the reason that you? I mean, we bow for BJJ, but actually, I don't know the exact reason why we bow, other than a sign of respect.
Yeah, but also a sign of respect
for
each other.
Like, the teachers.
So the idea is that you all bow together at the same time, and therefore nobody is any more or less than anyone else. It's also a sign at the beginning and end of contests. So you go on to a contest, you bow into a contest, and you accept the rules of engagement. You then fight and you bow out of the contest, leaving everything that happened on the mat, and you can come off and still be part of a team and shake hands and discuss what happened. But all of the animosity and aggression that there may have been, it stays on the mat and it gets left behind. So you bow out and you accept that it's now finished, and you have left that as a finite object.
Being a brown belt, I didn't know that.
There's a real like mental.
I did not know that.
It is.
I feel like BJJ is a bit more relaxed around that side of it. Like I think it's part of its history, but it's not necessarily.
I thought it was the same. Wouldn't it be the same? Bowing. The reason why.
What? I think it will mean the same, but the fact that like I wasn't sure and neither were you, I think because BJJ is our background, so Joe can teach us the values we're supposed to be. I love that idea. I think that's sort of because what we do always say, you leave it on the mat. Like that's very common, and I guess that's where it comes from. And it seems like a real mental as a way to deal with that kind of, that separate the aggression and separate the normal, the community, which is a good idea. And I think that makes a lot of sense. And in terms of women's participation, again, do you think that there's, obviously women are rising through the ranks as, more and more women get involved. Is there anything else that you see being done which is encouraging that kind of thing? And is there anyone that's sort of doing anything particularly
Do you mean just judo
helpful
or generally in
to get women's
sport?
involvement going? Are they different answers?
Possibly.
A bit.
We're
Maybe
seeing
judo,
quite a
style
lot
judo.
of elite women in the coaching scene out or at international events as national coaches. Japan, France, all the big hitters have got female coaches, national coaches, and I think that's great. They are great role models, and most of them have fantastic performance CVs themselves. So that's really nice to see. And in fact, the Japanese coaches do it almost by weight group as well. So they'll have a women's coach for the lightweight team, who is this person, and a women's coach for the middleweight team. They're not always necessarily just women or just men, women for the women, but there's more and more of them now. And it does seem that the coaches for the national team of women are women. And that's great to see. It's amazing to see.
That's incredible. What about for general martial arts? Because I would have thought the answer would be quite similar in terms of that would help.
It depends how many recreational judo players are actually watching live streamed elite judo. If lots are watching it, then they'll see that and understand the roles. But I think there's a lot more happening in terms of the promotion of, like marketing of female combat sports. When I look at Claudia Doval and the way she is on social media, I love it. I absolutely love it. I think she's out there every day. She posts content for free. She posts videos of her doing amazing things, which is inspirational. She has an incredible CV. She's done it for herself. She's a super strong role model. She has some difficulties in her background, which she's managed to overcome somewhat publicly. And I think she's doing amazing things to prove that women can get to the top of their game. And I know it's not been easy for her. We had her over at our club a couple of years ago to do a masterclass. She was fantastic. And I said to her, why on earth are you doing so many of these? She said, I have to pay for my travel if I want to be number one. So, in order to pay for her journey, she would go to different countries, compete nearby, hope to win the prize money, and also earn the masterclass fees. And that was paying for her journey, paying for her flights so that she could get all over the world to do it. And, she works incredibly hard, considering how great she looks online. She's working all the time to get better, to maintain her record, to ensure her image is as it should be. And that can only be a positive role model for female competitors.
You're right. 100%. Shall we talk about challenges and how you overcome them? Because you've said a big one on COVID, this lockdown. You've had a complete different approach to most of us. Have you had any setbacks during your career that you're willing to share?
Oh yeah, of course. There've been a lot of different setbacks. There've been some political things which are always tricky to overcome, and I think they're probably best handled quietly these days. There have been my own injury was a massive setback, actually a huge setback. There are other things like I've been told to my face that I'd never make it as a national coach because I don't have my own world and Olympic medals. So it doesn't matter how good you are at doing the job or how many qualifications you have, how much experience you have. If you haven't got those medals, you'll never make it as a coach. Well, there are men coaching who don't have those medals. So, just saying. Yeah, but that's been said to my face by people that I really respected. I respect them a little bit less now. Yeah, so that kind of thing's been a setback. But it's such a cliche to say that every setback that you overcome makes you stronger. That's a yawn, big yawn, but it's kind of true.
Yeah.
But it's only true if you keep going. So if you're persistent, then each one of those moments of adversity becomes something you carry forward and becomes part of your success. But if you actually aren't persistent and you stop, then you can't ever see that it became part of your strength, because you didn't allow it to. You have to keep solving things,
Yeah.
and if you don't solve them, then they're not solved.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just thinking about, do you have somewhere in mind that you're going in terms of, like, other than continuing to coach world champions and like running your amazing club, is that something that you're sort of, is there something on the horizon that you're sort of working towards in terms
There's a
of
range of
that,
things,
that
actually,
you're building for?
and it's only really recently that
next?
I've kind of felt there might be a bit of creative structure coming in the future. So I'm trying to do I'm finishing my PT qualification at the moment, and I'm trying to do a little bit of work as PT mentor. I'm really interested in helping other mums who may have felt as stuck as I have at certain times, help them to learn to understand again that they are capable humans, and doing that through exercise, through sport, through a bit of mentoring within that context. And I'm trying to get that off the ground. I think we'll have to wait until COVID is done. But yeah, some of that PT stuff I'd like to really explore. I'm looking forward to seeing where my future takes my children. They're nice small humans. I like them a lot, and they work and they're funny, and they deserve to have whatever they decide to work for. So I'm looking forward to that. One of them particularly is really, really engaged with combat sports and wants to climb to the very top. So I want to support him as much as I can. I'm looking forward to that journey. It's going to be probably heartbreaking and exciting in equal measure, but I'm looking forward to it. And I want to continue working with my team at the International Judo Federation. So I write for the International Judo Federation as part of their media team, and I absolutely love it. It is a fantastic job working with amazing people. It's empowering, and it's a big part of me feeling great within my sport. I love it. I absolutely love my job. It's brilliant. It's the best.
That's
It's a
so nice to
blessing.
hear.
It's a blessing to hear that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I did, but
Well, Joe
I know
built it.
I know we mentioned last time we spoke about imposter syndrome, and yeah, and actually that's massive for
Oh
me.
yes,
Like, it
we
was the
did.
same when you guys said we'd like you to come on a podcast. I was just like, who, why, what for? And it's for, who am I?
What
But it's the
for?
same with everything. So when I first made contact with the IJF media team, and they said, well, if you think you can write, send us something. And I was like, really? Okay. If you say so, all right, I'll do as I'm told. So I sent them a piece of work, and they liked it. And I was like, really? Why?
Can you
Read it
Yeah.
again.
can
Read it
you
again.
explain a
Come
little
back
bit
to me
more
when
about
you're
this
sure.
imposter syndrome, so that the
Yeah.
audience gets to understand what you're talking about?
It's the feeling that you're not good enough to be in the position that you're in, or the a feeling that maybe you shouldn't be there or don't deserve it. And actually, I have to go through a process now. So if I'm offered something that seems really, really great, and it's based on my sports career as a coach mostly, I have to kind of mentally go through almost my CV. I have to kind of go, well, you've done this and you've done this and you've done, okay, maybe I fit the spec for what they're looking for.
Joe, can I say something? I was reading an article saying that
Okay.
women and men, how do they differ in when applying to a job? So when women,
That.
yeah,
Yes.
so women need to feel that they tick every single point from the job
Twice.
description,
Twice.
and then
Yeah.
and then they're feeling, all right, maybe I can do it. But men,
Yeah.
if they tick two boxes, they're like, yep, I'm good for it.
Yeah.
This is so different.
For me, that's true. For me, that's absolutely true.
Oh
And
my
there've been
God.
so many times where I've been sent jobs from time to time. So just from a friend or whatever, they say, this job would suit you so much. And I'll go through the job spec and I can cover 98.7% of it perfectly. With 40% of it, I'm way over the qualified. And then that last little 1.3%, I'm like,
Yeah.
nah, it's not for me. Can't do it.
Yeah, no, I can't do it. I'm the same.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Maybe
But I
we
have
lack testosterone. Maybe we need to just
maybe.
Oh my God,
But
guys.
now I
get
push
some.
myself. So when people say things, so when you guys came, I was so nervous about doing a podcast. I've never been asked to do one before. And I kind of said, why are they asking me? And then I was like, well, probably because of this. I'm going to need my other hand. Okay, this. And then you go through it and you're like, actually, my story's quite interesting. And I have to kind of tell myself that story belongs to me. Because if I was reading it about somebody else, I'd be like, that's really interesting. Oh, that's quite interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, they did that. Oh, cool. And then you apply it to me and I'm like, yeah, but it's nothing really.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's in a way, there's a sense of,
Yeah, but it's too
humility, which is a
much.
positive thing. It's
Yeah.
good to be humble, but then it can be too. I'm like, I've had this before where I got into this course that I was and I was when I got the interview, I didn't believe it, and then when I got in, I was literally like, someone else has to read this letter and tell me, because I don't believe that they've sent it to the right
Yeah.
person. And I had it until I got there. I had it for months.
Yeah, I
I
had a
just was
big
like,
one
there's
of
no
those
way that
actually.
they
The
meant
biggest
me.
one of
There's no
those
way that
was
they meant me. Why?
I applied for a role as part of the organising team for the London Olympics judo event. And it was a relatively big job in terms of, it wasn't just for the time of the games, it was in all the lead up to the games. So it was substantial. And I applied for the job, and one of my then friends was quite high up and was already working for LOCOG. And she said, just apply. Look, if you're a good candidate, we'll interview you. If your CV doesn't match, we won't. But, apply. Why not? So I applied for it and I got the interview, and I felt the interview went really well. And then I got the job. And I remember the day I got the job, and I remember actually crying. Like, how? What a job at the London Olympics? I'm going to be paid to help organise a judo event in my hometown for the Olympic Games. That's incredible. Like, I was so blown away by it. And honestly, I had the best 9 months ever. It was the best job ever in the whole world. I will do anything in my life to get to any Olympics in any way I possibly can. I will crawl there on my hands and knees to be at the Olympic Games. It's the best. Um, I'd been to Athens as a spectator. I couldn't afford to go to China. And then London, I was working. And then Rio, I was a volunteer. And I will be in Tokyo again. And it's just, the Olympic Games atmosphere was so incredible. And the whole working process of the organization was just, it was fantastic. And I learned so much. It was the most empowering experience. But my main judo manager was also a woman. And she is still really, really good at empowering people to believe in their own worth. If you can do the job, go and do the job. Stop worrying about it. Just do the job. And that's kind of how she approaches everything. She's fantastic. I've learned so much about myself, but also about how to manage other people. Really, really good role model. And she's now working in the International Judo Federation as well. She's the overall competition manager for the whole of the IJF. And she's just an amazing human who can do amazing things for people in the work environment.
That's amazing. That's really good to have women like females like
That's
that. That's
that's a
Oh, so
great.
good,
gift.
so good.
And so, what was it about the Olympics that makes you so excited, other than having that
I
experience
think
of like learning
partly
in that way? Why do you
because
keep going
there
back?
is nowhere to hide. When you're at the Olympic Games, you can only be there if, as an athlete, if you have worked your socks off for a significant portion of your life to be at the top of your game in something you've chosen and probably sacrificed for. And I think being around that kind of elite mentality is inspiring, and it's I feel kind of humbled by it, and it teaches me more about how I want to work, how I want to live. Um, it's the epitome of hard work, consistency, and achievement at the end of it. And being in that environment, I think, can only teach us to be more robust and keep going for the things that we have as goals.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I guess feeding off of that energy, it's like when you surround yourself with positive
Totally.
people and positive energy, you then will
Yeah.
take it in. And as a woman, when you've experienced animosity or negativity or a challenge which you may not think a male counterpart would have, how do you deal with it? What's your mentality? How do you not? Because I find it, when that sort of thing happens to me, I'm like, oh God's, like, it's sort of, you have to then pick yourself back up and go, right, okay,
That's
I'll
changed
fight this
over
one
the
as well.
years as well.
How
I
do
used
you
to get
approach
really
it?
indignant and upset by things like that. But a really, really cool coach, a lovely, lovely man by the name of Brian Moore, several years ago. He is the coach of Sophie Cox, if you know Sophie.
Yeah.
He was her. Okay, there you go. Sophie's judo coach was
Yeah.
Brian Moore,
Oh
is
yeah,
Brian
I
Moore.
spoke to her.
And he is really, really old school. Women cook dinner, men go out to work.
Oh.
But also the loveliest man, and also inspiring. And he one day took me to one side and just said, we're quite close, we've coached together before, and Nekoda and Sophie have fought, and so we know each other really well. And he took me to one side. He said, you need to stop with this chip on your shoulder about being a woman coach. Just be a coach. If you're good at your job, just coach, and stop worrying about being female. He said, other people will worry about that enough for you. You don't need to worry about it as well. Just do your job. And I was like, wow, I just got told off. Okay. And I was probably, I don't even remember why, but I think I was probably having an argument with somebody who was talking down to me because I was a woman. And I'd come back at them with you're only talking to me like that because I'm a woman. And actually what he was saying was, just go with what's right. If you're right in the argument, then you're right in the argument. It doesn't matter whether you're male or female. But this is coming from somebody who's so old school, but he absolutely had faith in people doing their job well. And I loved that. I absolutely loved it, and it's really, really stayed with me.
Right.
Yeah, he's done that a few times actually. There's a few moments with him. Yeah, actually, he has. He's said all
What
sorts
do
to me
you?
that's really stuck. Like with Nekoda, I remember many years ago, he said, you're going to have a really great ride with that one. She's going to go all the way, and you're going to go with her, and that's going to be amazing. But beware, you will have to sacrifice X, 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 and X to do it. So just know that now and decide whether you're going to go on the journey. Like, he's so wise. What a great guy. Definitely one of my mentors, and he probably doesn't even know it.
Wow. That's very wise, because I think people forget the sacrifice
I have abandoned my
that you
children
have
on a
to
regular
make when
basis
you
for
put your head
years.
down to something. Really, I was going to ask how on earth you have managed to raise 4 children and be as a single mum and be an incredibly successful judo coach to amazing people, and and also now you're fit as well.
The
You're
looking
also
after
looking after
myself,
yourself.
the
How have
looking
you
after
managed
myself
that?
is really,
Because
really
we need
recent.
to
Actually,
know.
I was chatting to Nekoda today, and I said to her, do you know, I think I'm only now, just now, starting to recover from having children. My youngest is 10. She's going to be 11 in March. And I think I'm just now giving myself the time. And actually, this period during COVID has been quite strange, because I think I've always approached life with a hard work overcomes everything. So if you just keep working, you can move on to the next thing, keep going. And so anything that's been a major setback, especially personally, I've never given myself the time to process and recover from. And that includes having children. Like, having children is massive. You lose your body, you change your friendship networks, your sleep patterns are gone. Everything is completely different. I was about to say ruined. It's not ruined, it's changed. But I'm sorry, anyone having a baby, it's absolutely fine. Honest, you'll be fine eventually.
Very good.
But It's
Hold on.
yeah, hold on just a second. You may want to rethink this. It's been incredibly tough, but this period of enforced house arrest without being able to go anywhere or organize anything has meant that I've had to stay in my own head and work through some things that I probably should have worked through a very, very long time ago. So I really feel like this period has let me recover from some relationship stuff. It's let me think about my own health and what it really means to be a role model for my children, because it's all very well to inspire them with hard work, but not if I'm sick. I mean, if I'm not well and if I'm not happy, then that's not the right kind of role model. So I've worked a lot on that stuff. And in April, we had COVID in March as a family, and then in April, when I was starting to feel recovered, I just decided, health first, have to get on it. And I did my very first 5K bike ride, which was disgusting. I hated every second of it. My bum hurt on the saddle, and it's true, I was using my teenager's bike, and I was overweight and not healthy and not fit at all. And it was really awful, but I just made the decision that day, and I have kept doing that every day. So I wake up and I make the decision to be fitter and healthier. And today is day 284 in a row of training every day. And it's just, I've only been able to do that because of COVID, but now I will continue to do that forever, I think.
Yeah. And when you say training, what kind of training are you talking? You're not talking about going smashing it and annihilating it every day.
Hear the answer.
Or are you?
No, I have pushed myself, but one of the things that I was really keen to do was to not break myself. So I have felt my way through my training so that each day I am capable of training again the next day or training the next session. So I haven't tried to completely kill myself. I've done it twice in this period. So from April to now, twice I think I've overdone it. And once was in October, where I took a little injury to my shoulder, which is still a little bit sore, but it's okay. It's all right. I can train on it again. And the other time, I don't remember exactly when, maybe July or August. And I remember a day where I did like a 25k cycle, and then I followed that up with I'd done a run in the morning. I did a run in the morning, then a 25k cycle, and then I went to a 1-to-1 kettlebell session. I smashed myself in the kettlebell session, lifting heavier than I have all year, for an hour, and then I cycled probably 20k home, and then when I got home, I had something to eat, and then I can remember going back to my kettlebells and practicing the same stuff that I'd already done. So I did at least 5 sessions that day, and then I was ruined for 2 weeks. I could not re-find my energy again. So that kind of showed me where my limits were. But now I make sure I train at least once a day, although sometimes that training might come across more like a recovery cycle or recovery run. But I train every day. So today I've done cycling and a fairly explosive kettlebell circuit.
Nice. I think having recovery days in some way is such a... I mean, I think every single person burns out some, like in the early days of training, particularly like if you're an adult. If you're a kid, it's a bit different because you grow into it. But as an adult, I remember seeing so many people at jiu-jitsu and having this myself, and just you're like, why am I ill all the time? And it was because you had no way, no metric for understanding where you needed to like slow down.
I think there's a lot of people,
and then you'd just be in bed for
I don't know what your experience is. I think there's a lot of people in BJJ who don't necessarily have a solid grasp on nutrition and how it can help them. And I think nutrition and sleep and positive recovery are really, really important. And to be honest, I don't think there's an excuse for them. If you know you need to go to sleep, go to sleep. And if you know that you need to drink enough water, then do it. Don't just brush it off and not do it and then expect yourself to be in peak condition. And it's the same with your nutrition. You need to have a certain amount of protein. You need to replace the glycogen in your muscles. You need to do all those things in order to be in good condition. For me, I suppose I already had that knowledge because I've studied it. I've worked with people making weight for a long, long time. But it's really, really important to get all that stuff right. Now, you might not be somebody who's going to be world champion, but if you want to get better in your sport, you need to sleep right, eat right, drink right. And there is no excuse. Everybody can do those things. And so I think I've mostly got those things kind of under my belt already. And now it's just learning about my limits and how much I should be doing. But my genuine aim is to be able to train every day. So in order to do that to some degree, I make sure that I don't kill myself. I can do hard sessions. You know, some days I'll run 10K and then the next day I will do mad 3 sessions and do whatever. But then on day 4, I will only do 5K on the bike and come back and stretch, and that's me. But there's something every day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, again, you're going back to the consistency
no
is key
excuses,
idea, and I
just
think
begin.
That's a really good lesson.
On everything.
Something else that you've mentioned before, which really resonated with me, which is something I've been learning over the past few years, is goal setting.
For me personally.
Can you tell us a bit about how you set your goals? Yeah, I mean, you know, in terms of what I'm thinking of something specific, but it not setting the maximum you could possibly do
it's
to
really,
do you know what I mean? Like
really
having
important
an
your goals
achievable,
not only reflect where you want to be, but also reflect the realistic possibilities of your commitment. What is it you actually want to achieve? Well, I don't want to be Olympic champion. It's not appropriate for me to think like that. I'm 44 years old and a mum. I'm not going to be Olympic champion. Let's make that really clear. But that's not where I want to be. I want to be fit and healthy, and I want to be fit and healthy for as long as I possibly can be. And I'm going to do everything in my power to maintain that, so that when my children need me as a warm-up partner, because there's no one else at a tournament, I can do that. That's no problem. Because I want to live a life that inspires other people to be in control of themselves and stay healthy. I now don't underestimate the position I'm in as a head coach of a club and of coach of somebody high profile. I have a responsibility to people who are watching, and you never know who's watching or how many of them are watching. You know, it's the responsible thing to do to live healthily. And so that has become kind of a vague umbrella goal. Be healthy, be strong. I've been laughing with my oldest because he says, "Mum, what's your goal?" I say, "I'm going to be skinny wham. That's my goal." He says, "Skinny wham. I want to be thin, but with muscles." Okay. That's it. That's my goal. Well, he says, "How much do you want to weigh?" Because I've lost a lot of weight. He says, "How much do you want to lose?" I said, "Well, I didn't put a figure on it, and I've still not put a figure on it. I only step on the scales as an indication. I'm not weighing myself for a goal. My goal is to be thinner and full of muscles. That's it. That's my goal. Skinny wham." Is that realistic? Yes, it is. It's completely realistic. Of course it is. To be Olympic champion isn't. So I try to set goals that are realistic and achievable, and things that are not going to set me up to fail on my bad days. So especially in COVID, we've all had bad days where we've really struggled one way or another. And actually, my goal every day is 5 kilometers on the bike or by running. And I've been able to stick to that for 284 days because it's not too much. 5K on the bike takes me 16 minutes if I'm not even killing it too much. And I can do that. There is no excuse. I can jump on a bike. It doesn't matter how tired I am. If I pedaled at, almost no speed, I could still do it. So
it's that start. It's to get this, to make the start.
Yeah. But 5K a day, even if I'm having my darkest day and it's the world's caving in on me, I can still get on a bike and do 5K. I mean, I can. And I've had some really bad days, so I'm not underplaying people who are suffering with depression or loneliness or all of those things. I'm really not underplaying it. But honestly, take a deep breath, get on your bike, go for 5K and breathe some fresh air, and then come home and know that you did something. And that's how I approach that day. It then gives you a feeling of accomplishment. I remember watching a really inspiring video. It was about Navy SEALs, I think, and it's on Gold Coast, and they show a lot of stuff that's supposed to be inspiring, and it has this powerful music in the background. But it's it's a guy in the armed forces, and he's talking about how we should all get up in the morning and make our bed as the first thing we do. Make your bed, no matter what.
Yeah.
Have you seen it? Have you seen it?
Yeah.
Make your bed. It's the one thing. It doesn't
Yeah,
matter
I
what
think
else
I
happens in your
remember
day.
that.
When you come
It
upstairs,
was
you will know that you made your
yeah.
bed, and you will have somewhere comfortable to sleep when you go to bed that night. And that is the first thing that you should accomplish at the beginning of every day. And I do. I make my bed every day. I get out of the bed, I make the bed, and then I go and brush my teeth and get on with my day. But make your bed every day. Have something to accomplish.
I love the idea that making your bed is an
My
accomplishment. I think having that
my
as a
grandma used
psychological
to
thing
tell
of
me when
just
I was
like,
little,
okay, I
you
made
need
my
to
bed.
make your bed,
Ah,
and
that's
your bed
nice.
needs to be very, very, very neat. Otherwise, the husband that you're gonna get is not gonna be pretty. So in my head, when I was little, I was thinking, I need to make my bed really, really nicely because I don't want to marry an ugly man.
Oh
So
no!
yeah, different, different perspectives there.
I mean, yeah, okay. Everything should be an
Same result.
accomplishment, though, surely.
That's
And I don't mean
hilarious.
like world-changing things, but actually, if you think about doing
100%.
something and having the attention to detail and focusing on preparing your life for the rest of that day, then surely that is part of the accomplishment.
100%.
Yeah, I think it's having that perspective though, because often, especially when you're not
Yeah.
feeling good and when you're being self-critical, overly unnecessarily self-critical, um, you miss out on those sort of moments of
Mm.
self-appreciation because you're so wrapped up in that sort of self-loathing and like, and it's such that spiral. But having that perspective of no, like on a
Yeah.
hard day, especially if you're not working or you're working at home because of COVID and you can't see your loved ones,
Can be at this
knowing that
time.
no, but getting
Yeah.
out of bed is an
Yeah.
achievement
Make the
alone.
bed
Making the bed, I need to buy a
downstairs, and
gold
I do a
star.
cooked breakfast for the children most
Like
days of some
making
description,
breakfast, wow.
and we enjoy a meal together before the day even starts. By the time you get to lunchtime, if you've done nothing else, you've had a great breakfast together, shared that with your family, and you've got a nice, crisp, cozy bed to go back to at the end of the day. So it sounds silly, but I really believe in us noticing the details that allow us to feel good in our day. Why not? Why not? I'm the same with the sky. I go outside and I look for pretty skies and clouds
Mm,
and the way the trees sit in front of the sunlight, and I look for that stuff because every tiny moment of positive is something that can make our day just feel better at the
yeah,
moment.
yeah. Oh my God. I mean, the storm is nuts today, though. I went
I
out
was
for my
really
run and I was
lucky. I
like,
keep on being
oh
lucky
my
with it, touch
God,
wood.
why have I
And I
done
went for my
this?
cycle early because I was leading the kettlebell session at 10:15. So I went out for the cycle to warm up, get my body ready, came back and did kettlebells. And then straight after kettlebells, it's just been thunder and rain all day. I was like, okay, cool. I got time right. Because I would go out in it
Yeah.
anyway, but I go out in it anyway. So it saved me from having to go
Like,
out
I did
running or
it.
cycling in the rain, which I would have done.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's so I think I love that goal setting like a minimum and then everything else is an extra. Like if you want to push
It's not the
harder,
same for
you
everyone, and
push
I think
harder.
for
But if
elite
you literally
athletes,
feel like you're going
obviously
to
they
fall
have to have
over,
goals
it
that
doesn't matter
really
because
push
you've
them to
achieved.
excel. They have to do something that is different to set them apart from the mainstream. Otherwise, you're not elite, you're just decent mainstream. But I think for
Mm.
the general population, actually what we need is a set of goals that carry us to a minimum accomplishment every day. And I don't want anybody to set themselves up to fail. If you aim too high and you constantly miss it, that's soul destroying, especially when you're stuck in your house
Yeah.
day after day after day. You need a set of goals that you can absolutely meet on a daily basis. And that doesn't mean they're rubbish goals. I mean, I think if I cycled only and didn't do any other training, 5K a day, at the end of the week, I've done 35 kilometers on a bike. It's not nothing. I mean, it's not expensive, but it's not nothing. So
Mhm,
I think
mhm.
setting a minimum has
Mm.
enabled me
Yeah.
to overcome the period and constantly do something. It's not overwhelming at all, and lots of goals are.
Yeah, and
You know,
it's
I
not
set
daunting.
myself all sorts of goals in my life, and they become very stressful trying to reach them.
Yeah.
And this one has just been perfect. I've not even changed it, you know, from April last year to now. My goal's the same every day.
Yeah.
And that sounds really daft. Of course, I have other goals. I want to achieve my blue belt in BJJ. I'd like to compete in BJJ. I'd like to do some really cool stuff with my writing. I'd like to interview some great people and produce amazing portraits in words. And I want to keep doing that. I want to coach my children until they've had enough of being coached. But, but yes, just stop it. Just stop it.
Till they're like,
yeah,
get out.
for me, I
Leave me
personally
alone.
want that minimum goal to know that I've ticked something off every day that's useful.
Good. And this leads us very well to the
Brilliant.
question
That's
that
a
we
really good
ask
takeaway.
everybody. What are you fighting for? That is gonna. I really want to hear what do you have to say, because you're fighting for 1 million things at the moment.
Yeah, I am constantly. It's been like that my whole life. I think three main things. I am fighting for my children to become positive, happy human beings as they get to adulthood. I am fighting for my own health, mentally and physically, which is in a really good place at the moment. And I'm going to keep fighting for that. It's necessary. But I'm also fighting for all humans, but probably women more, to understand that no matter how stuck they are in their current situation, they can always be more capable if they choose. And I intend to keep fighting for that one, because unsticking women from their rut and enabling them to find their own strength again is really close to my heart, and I think can only enhance communities.
Wow.
That is very powerful. I love it.
You are welcome.
I think that, yeah. Thank you so much, Jo.
Thank you for having just
Thank you
me
for your
on your
time
program
and for sharing your story with us and answering That's okay. We're so glad
Lovely
we
to meet
did.
you again.
It's been really, really nice having another chat with you. Yay. I'm going to